throwing a shadow on me, it's making a picture.
Has Dominic Raab actually seen Star Wars? Number 2, whose side was he on? Maybe he just watches Empire Strikes Back right up to the bit where Luke gets his arm cuts off and then hits pause. Ah! Happy ending. Take that, Rebel scum. So we are the Rebel Alliance now, and the Force is with us, folks. And they know this. Because 2 days ago, on LBC, Jacob Rees, paint me like one of your French girls mug, said the reason we couldn't possibly have a second referendum is that now everybody knows what Brexit means, nobody would vote for it. He said that out loud with people listening on the radio. So basically, folks, in the space of the last 48 hours, the opposition has admitted that we are the good guys and that we've been right all along. You really don't have to make this stuff up, do you? My name is Mitch Benn, and I'm going to be trying to hold this thing together for you over the course of the next 3 or 4 hours, okay? Well, actually, less now, about 2.5 hours. The council have told us we've got to be out of here by 8. So we're going to do... And the idea is, as I'm sure you know, they're kind of busy in there right now. There's a lot of stuff going on in that house. Our house. The people's house.
That's good.
And as and when some of our most sympathetic MPs get a minute, they're going to come running over the street and they're going to talk to you. You looking forward to that? Good. But before we proceed, I have 2 questions I want to put to you. Number 1, who knows what today's date is? Quite right, my friend, it is the 4th of September. That means it is now 159 days since this country was supposed to leave the European Union. Here's my second question. Where are we right now?
In the European
We're in the European Union! That's where we are! 159 straight days of winning! And we win because we turn up. We win because we turn out. We make the effort. We have this crowd here that got out on basically no notice whatsoever. I only knew about this rally 24 hours ago. And I don't know when you guys found out about it. So that's what it takes. Turning up. Turning out. It's a numbers and enthusiasm game right now. And by making the sheer act of rocking up to this square, you have made our cause that bit more successful. So your first round of applause today is for yourselves. And those of you with union flags, get those union flags up. Get those flags up. That is your flag. Do not let Nigel Farage tell you that is not your flag. Do not let Stephen Yaxley Lennon tell you that is not your flag. Do not let Boris Johnson tell you that is not your flag. Not only is that our flag, it's not their flag anymore. You don't get to wave a flag of a union that your position is you don't care what happens to it.
Yes!
That flag, they've ceded the right to use that flag. That's our flag now. So I want to see that flag as high as the European flags. This is a European movement, this is a British movement. We are not citizens of nowhere. We're citizens of Britain, we're citizens of Europe, and we're going to keep it that way. Round of applause yourselves again. I know what you're thinking, not a lot of jokes. But I can't compete. I'm sorry. I can't compete. There's nothing I can say by way of satire that can make what happened yesterday look any stupider than it actually was. And I'm sorry, you do have to feel a glimmer of sympathy for Boris Johnson right now. Well, I do. I'm sorry. You can't imagine what it's like to be 55 years old and to spend your entire life working towards attaining that job that you have believed is your birthright since you were a child. You have destroyed every friendship you ever had. You've betrayed every relationship you've ever had. You've burned every bridge you have ever crossed to get to your goal. And you get there, and you achieve it, and it's yours. And it turns out you really suck at it. But anyway, everybody's in. Go on, get them off fucking shouting. Let's have it. See if we can hear us. There you go. Well, now we're going to wrap this up. One more time. Stop. Thank you. Because we are speakers when ready to get onto the stage? Are you ready to meet the first one? Yeah! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Labour MP, Mr. Wes Streeting.
Good afternoon, London. I come bearing good news. It's Wednesday, the 4th of September, and the UK is still a member of the European Union. And I've got more good news. Yesterday, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, with no mandate, no clue, and no deal of his own, was blocked. He lost the vote to stop the government dragging the UK out of the European Union, crashing out without a deal. We beat Boris Johnson yesterday, we'll beat him today, we'll beat him tomorrow, and we will beat him every day. Boris Johnson is not going to drag our country out of the European Union with no deal. And I want to echo something that's already been said, because there is no doubt that without people like you in rallies like this, the people who've been meeting MPs, writing emails, sending postcards, talking to your neighbours, talking to your friends, rallying communities, without that huge effort, we would have already left the European Union. But we haven't, and that is thanks to you and thanks to this movement. And what we are here today for is not just a fight for Britain's future as members of the European Union. It's for the fight of the very heart and soul of British democracy. The idea that an unelected clique with advisors like Dominic Cummings and Nigel Farage pulling the strings, the idea that this clique could ruin our country's future without any reference to the public, without any referendum, without any deal, is an affront to our democracy. And despite the abuse, the intimidation and the threats, we have shown across the House of Commons and across political parties, we will not be cowed, we will defend our democracy, we will defend the right of the people to decide, and we will fight for Britain's future in the European Union. Because one thing has become very clear since the referendum. All of those promises have amounted to nothing. The £350 million a week promise for the NHS will never happen, as Sajid Javid's no-deal budget will plunge Britain into a no-deal recession. The promise that this Parliament would have greater sovereignty and greater control has proven to be a lie, as our country will become a vassal state to Donald Trump's America, begging for trade deals with every despot, dictator and tyrant who will sign on the dotted line. That's not the future we want for our country. Britain's future belongs in the European Union. We are proud to be British, we're proud to be English, but we are also proud Europeans. We are proud to be part of a community of nations that isn't just built on economic cooperation and trade, but is built on common shared values of human rights, of workers' rights, of social justice and environmental justice. And in a world where international cooperation matters more than ever before, I would much rather see Britain working with our friends and allies across the European Union than the likes of Donald Trump in the White House. Or any other regime around the world. So that's what we're fighting for. I just want to say thank you on behalf of every member of Parliament who has walked through the voting lobbies today and will continue to do so to fight to defend our democracy. We could not do this without you, but the battle is not yet over. It is the responsibility of every MP in every political party in the coming days to make sure that the national interest comes first, that the country comes first, over and above partisan party political interests. No one wants to see the back of Boris Johnson and the Tories more than I do. When I was a councillor, I beat the Tories to win my seat. When I became an MP, I beat the Tories to win my seat. There's nothing more than I like than beating Tories. But our first priority now is to stop no deal. It is our first and only priority today to stop no deal. And we've got to work together. Labour, Conservative, SNP, Green, Plaid Cymru, across party lines, truly representing the national interest. That's why our constituents send us to Parliament. And you know, To those people who tell MPs like me, whose constituencies voted to leave the European Union, that we have to troop through the lobbies, voting for something that we know would do our country harm, I just say simply, I would rather vote and lose my job than vote for other people to lose their jobs. And when the general election comes, and the general election will come, it will come. Boris Johnson has lost his majority. The general election is now inevitable, and it is necessary. And when that general election comes, we will pound the streets, we will knock on doors, we will deliver leaflets, we will continue to make the case for Britain's membership of the European Union, and we will win. We will win. We have to make sure that after the general election we have as many Remainers elected back in that place as possible, and we need to work together across party lines to make that happen. With your help, with your support, we can win. We've done it before, we will do it again. Without you, we wouldn't be members of the European Union today. Without you, we won't be members of the European Union for years to come. So let's work together, let's fight together, and let's win together.
We defeated the government again, 329 to 300. And I think this is a really, really extraordinary moment for our democracy and for our country, because this is about the people, this is about taking control, this is about the British way of doing things, not trying to shut down Parliament, to gag the people's elected representatives, to talk about not even complying with the law. You know, I mean, who do these people think they are? You only had to look yesterday at Jacob Rees-Mogg, sitting there, slouching, lying down, arrogant, elite, totally out of touch with the people of this country, telling us that we should have a no-deal Brexit that I know would damage the job prospects and opportunities of my constituents in Cardiff South and Penarth, would damage our national security, would increase the instability of this country, would put at risk the peace and the progress that we've made on the island of Ireland. And crucially, a no-deal Brexit that wouldn't end this issue. It would mean it would go on and on and on and on and on, but with us negotiating from a position of weakness. From weakness, extraordinary situation. And I want to pay absolute tribute to all of the MPs, particularly who have seen some of those who I have disagreed with fundamentally on many, many issues over the last few years, who took a stand yesterday, a very brave stand. And there's been more of them in there tonight as well, I can tell you, okay? And I think this is truly extraordinary. And when you look at people like Nicholas Soames and Ken Clarke, you know, remarkable individuals. I've disagreed with them, as I said, on many issues, but who are willing to put our country first, not their careers, not their egos, not some crazy ideology, but their country first, and suffer the consequences. I think that's truly remarkable. And I want to pay particular praise, and I'm sure Wes may have already, but particularly to one of my Labour colleagues today, Tam Dessy, I'm sure you've seen in taking on the Prime Minister to his face. Because I've always said this is about more than just Brexit. This is about the type of country we want to be. It's about the type of country we want to be. And it's not about a country where we have racism and division and demonising people and separating people and disuniting people and taking us, into some sort of, crazy libertarian trade deal with Donald Trump, who wants to buy up our NHS and, send us chlorinated chicken and everything else. That is not the kind of country that I want to be part of. That's not the kind of country I recognise. And I want to be really clear as well, and I say this at every single rally. This is about something much more fundamental than, many of us here back people's vote. I've backed people's vote since the start, right? And all of you have been so fantastic in this. But I think what's remarkable over the last 2 days, and remarkable about the messages that I've been getting from my constituents, is that people who voted both Leave and Remain, and you have MPs in there who voted Leave and Remain and voted for a deal and against a deal, have all said, enough is enough, this is too far, we've got to stop this. And I think they deserve a round of applause, a huge round of applause. So, our priority as MPs in there tonight, we hope that our friends in the House of Lords will be doing their job despite all sorts of chicanery and tactics. Our priority has to be taking this disastrous no-deal Brexit off the table. But then this issue has to go back to the people. But let me be also really, really clear. I'm a Labour MP. I want to see a general election. I want to see this government removed for all sorts of reasons. But we cannot have a cut and run election on Boris Johnson's terms. It would be a trick, it would be a trap, and we must not fall into it. We must not fall into it. We have to secure and implement this measure to block a no-deal Brexit, and then, you know, where we go down the line, you know, of course I want to see them. I'm ready for an election. I'm ready to get out there and fight on the streets of my constituency and stand up for what I believe in. But we cannot fall into this liar's trap, right? He has lied and lied and lied and lied and lied again, and we must not fall for it. So, no cut and run election. Let's do it on our terms. Let's fight to have the people's voice heard. Let's fight for our democracy. Thank you for all that you're doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker requires very little introduction, so that's what she's getting, a very little introduction. This person put some money...
I'm going to start my very brief comments by just very simply saying something that I'm not allowed to say inside the building beside me, and that is that Boris Johnson is a liar. Boris Johnson is currently lying to the country and suggesting that a no deal is an end to the conversation on Brexit, when he knows it is merely the beginning of 1,000 days more of negotiations that will have to go on for many, many, many years. It is not an end. The only thing it will end is the jobs of the people in my constituency. It will end the supply of nurses and doctors in my constituency. It will impoverish and endanger the people in this country. And when Boris Johnson says that he is proroguing Parliament, can we just stop saying prorogue? Can we just say shut down? I really hate the word prorogue. I have to look up how to spell it every single time. So the only reason Boris Johnson wants to go away from work on a little jolly is because he's claiming it's because he wants to restart as a new Prime Minister. Well, one of the things that he is ending by proroguing Parliament is a bill that would have protected the victims of domestic violence in this country. He is ending years of work done by hundreds of victims of domestic violence for his vanity project. Boris Johnson does not care a tiny jot about the people in my constituency, about the vulnerable victims in this country. Boris Johnson got 99% of his ambition realised the day he drove his car down Downing Street and put his key in the door. Representing your country matters, and it is difficult at the moment. It is hard and sometimes dangerous. It is not okay that our Prime Minister only wishes to represent himself and only wants his own ambition realised. He is not fit to be a member of Parliament, let alone our Prime Minister. The trouble is that we have got to sort out our country. We have got to deal with this issue of Brexit. And I no longer trust the executive of our country to deal with it honestly. And as always, the thing that has my faith in this country is the people of this country. We have got to lance the boil of Brexit, and the only way we can do this, and I speak from somebody who represents a seat that voted Leave, is not with a general election, but with a people's vote. I wish I could be funny and valedictory, but it has been a difficult week in Parliament, and I have watched people who are brave giving up their jobs for the sake of their country. And I will not let the people in my constituency give up their jobs for the sake of the one that Boris Johnson wanted. So thank you to you all for always turning up, for keeping on fighting. Democracy matters. We have to all fight for it.
Show my support for defending democracy. Democracy means a lot to all of us, and it means a lot to me. My parents were born in a British colony, and it was democracy and the voice of the people that made their country free. It is democracy and the voice of the people which made possible some of the things we hold dearest that were brought in 1945. The NHS, universal education. That wasn't given to people. Democracy campaigned for that and produced that. And also, it's democracy that in 1987, ordinary people using their vote, which made something possible which people thought couldn't happen. In 1987, the first ever black woman was elected to the House of Parliament. Democracy did that, not elites. Now, over there in Parliament, we are coming together, all the opposition parties are coming together to fight a catastrophic no-deal Brexit and to be the voice of the people on Brexit. Because you know, one of the saddest things about Brexit is some of the areas that voted most strongly for Brexit will be the areas that suffer most if we actually come out of the EU. So we have to bring everybody together. We have to fight for everybody, whether they voted leave or whether they voted remain. And let me tell you this, I think a lot of people were shocked when Boris Johnson said he was going to close down Parliament for 5 weeks to stop us debating Brexit. But what I say is this, whether you voted leave, whether you voted remain, we can all agree that we're opposed to Tory Prime Ministers shutting down Parliament. We've come a long way in this struggle. Individuals I know have come a long way. But I have to stress, this fight, we owe it as much to communities that voted leave as to communities that voted remain. We've seen the upsurge in hate crime and hate speech since the Brexit vote. We're seeing what it's doing to our economy. We're seeing how it's stripping our young people of hope. I was glad this afternoon to vote against a no-deal Brexit. And we can see that Boris Johnson and his party are falling to pieces. Falling to pieces. I've never seen anything like it. So the struggle against a no-deal Brexit and a struggle for the people is a struggle worth fighting. It's a struggle worth uniting around, and I believe we will win. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and thank you for turning out in such numbers in such dramatic circumstances. What madness is it which impels a government which over 3.5 years can see for itself that every form of Brexit doesn't work? Instead of thinking again and going back and asking people, what is it you want, seeing the problems that this is causing us, that this same government instead just lurches into a deeper and deeper abyss. Because I'm afraid that that is what the present Prime Minister is now doing to our country. It fills me with horror to see a Conservative government behaving like a revolutionary junta. Threatening to disregard every democratic norm and transforming my party, the party I belonged to for until yesterday or sometime today, nobody's actually ever told me yet that I've been removed from it, but sometime in the last 24 hours I think it's happened to me. So a party of which I've been a member for 48 years, I think, pretty much month in or month out, suddenly has decided to get rid of 21 of its MPs. I think it'll be 23 by the end of this evening. Because we will not accept the utter irrationality of the government's position in insisting, firstly, on a negotiating position which doesn't exist and which we know from its own internal documents are a complete sham. And secondly, decides that this better solution is to drive us out of the European Union on the 31st of October, when every internal government document tells them that the consequences for every man, woman and child in this country will be catastrophic. That is the height of irresponsibility, and quite frankly, if that's the government, and if they've decided to get rid of me, well, I'm quite pleased. And all of us in Parliament have a duty, and it is about listening to others, and I have to say to you, honestly, we will also have to think, as we go along, about compromises and listening to other people's views, because heaven only knows how we're going to get through the next 3 or 4 months. I don't know if we're going to have a general election. It's possible, but I'm not actually completely convinced in my mind that Mr. Johnson wants one, because somebody may be gently pointing out what the consequences are going to be for him, probably in his own seat. But we need to conduct ourselves with moderation and to go out there and put over the message that when you face such a crisis in democracy, the best way of resolving it is to find a mechanism which enables people to express their views on the issue which is dividing us, which is why I've so consistently supported a referendum and people's vote. It's the one way that we will get through this problem and keep ourselves together. I'm a passionate believer in this country. A passionate believer, I have to say to you, some here of you will disagree, but I'm a passionate conservative because I happen to believe in conservative principles. But watching those being trashed in this building by people seized with total folly fills me with dismay. But I won't be dismayed. I will fight it every inch of the way, and with you, all of you, whatever your political background, whatever brought you here today, we are united in that one determination that we will resolve this through the democratic processes. We will do it with moderation and common sense, and if we stick together, we'll win this battle. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it would have been fun to have a big yellow crawl. It would have been fun to fire out that, but apparently, I don't know, George Soros's check didn't clear this month or something, I don't know. Should we keep this moving? Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Shadow Minister for Women and Equalities, Dawn Butler!
Thank you so much. Good evening, people. That was one hell of a speech, Dominic. Damn. These Tories have been freed from the chains. It's amazing, right? It's amazing when you stand up for your principles, what can come out of it. Hold up your people's votes, posters in the air and wave them like you just don't care. Today, this is the order paper, and today we took control of Parliament. Today, MPs stood up and we took control of Parliament. You know what they say? They say if you want to know what a person is like, speak to their nearest and dearest. So what does Boris's nearest, Johnson by name, Johnson by nature, what does Boris Johnson's nearest and dearest say about him? Let me tell you. You just don't care for anything because you're spoilt. You have no care for money or anything. That's what his nearest and dearest think about him, and isn't it true? He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about the EU. He just cares about himself. And look at the people he surrounded himself with. Yeah. Jacob Rees-Mogg. He said to Jacob Rees-Mogg, he said, go and lie on the front bench. And didn't he bloody... Oh, I'm not allowed to swear. And I keep doing that. And didn't he lie? I mean, how contemptuous is that? Have you seen the picture of him lying across the front bench while we're having a serious debate in Parliament? It's disgraceful. It is our democracy that they are walking all over. But we won't let them walk all over us, will we? No. We're going to stand up to him, aren't we? Yeah. This is our country. We are taking back control. And Johnson, you got the job you wanted from the age of 11 by 0.01% of the population. Let me tell you, that's not a lot of people. There's more of you here probably than voted for him to be in number 10. So look, today, PMQs, was a bad day for Johnson. Good. Yeah. Do you like Johnson, by the way? No! Just checking, I got the right crowd. So, Boris Johnson's PMQs was bluster, bluff, and a load of rubbish. But let me tell you something. Today was his first and last Prime Minister question. Thank you very much. Keep up the fight. Thank you.
You know, it occurs to me that Jacob Rees-Mogg's problem is he makes a common mistake. He confuses being expensively educated with being clever. You know, what makes a speech good is like the content and the showing rhetoric, not alliteration. Did you see when he managed his closing paragraph and he managed to get every C word he could think of into the paragraph and everybody listening immediately thought of another one? That's as close as I'm going to get to a rude word tonight. Let's get our next big one, shall we? Please welcome the Plaid Cymru MP for Dwyfyn Meirioneth, and she bet I couldn't pronounce that, Liz Summer-Roberts.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Lovely to see you all here this evening. And you know what they say about Wales? You know what they throw at us all the time? That Wales voted to leave. Well, I'll tell you now with the polling, every constituency but one now in Wales would vote to remain. You can lie to people, but you cannot stop them learning. You know, last night, 85% of Wales's MPs, they voted to bring this action today. They voted to stop no-deal Brexit. And you know what they're preparing for? Because I am honoured my constituency has half of Snowdon in it. They're telling us to prepare. You'll not be surprised about this. They're telling us to prepare for a cull on sheep. But today, in Wales questions, the Secretary of State for Wales, who is not Wales's voice in Westminster, he is the government's voice in Wales, he couldn't tell us how many people, he couldn't deny to us that people would die. They will die from the effect of no-deal Brexit, and they cannot even tell us where the body bags are. Disgusting. Now, no deal. We know this now. It has no mandate from the people, and it has no mandate from this place either. No one voted for the fewer jobs, the fewer opportunities. But the one thing that strikes me, we run the risk of being the first generation to bequeath on our children a worse future, worse life chances, worse opportunity, worse economy and worse health. Will we stand for that? No! We will not be the first generation in history to willfully bequeath that curse on our children. Now, the legislation that's going through this House now, when it's passed, it will be the first crucial step in protecting Wales and the UK from the horrors of no deal on October the 31st. It is the first step, but it cannot be the last. And let me be very, very clear now. We must be aware of the trap that is going for a general election on Boris Johnson's terms. Yeah. Because do you think, in all honesty, that if we give him the opportunity, we can trust a word that he will say? I will close on this. I am glad to see you. We will make sure that this legislation is the first step to make sure that we are safe at the end of October from no deal. Then I want to be among the members of Parliament in this Parliament here that we do two things. We stop Brexit and we stop Boris. And when that is done, we will use democracy for its due and proper purpose. We will return to the people. We will get a people's vote. And we will remain in Europe. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Let's Roberts!
Hi everyone. My name's Rania. I'm the National Chair of Labour Students and a proud supporter of For Our Future's Sake. I'm here today on behalf of thousands of students up and down the country. Students with so much to lose from a disastrous no-deal Brexit that Johnson is pushing through. We will lose our right to work, live and study in EU countries. And students from the EU lose their right to live, work and study here. It's safe to say our future is in the balance. The vast majority of people at university now, including myself, did not even get a say in 2016. Many apprentices and college students have never had a say. We have to watch as the future we did not get a say on is decided for us by Boris Johnson, Nigel Farage and Jacob Rees-Mogg. Politicians who have never cared about young people, whose opinions are still stuck in the dark ages. But it's not too late. We are heading towards a no-deal Brexit, but we are not there yet. It is never too late for democracy. Not just to allow people to have another say on Brexit, but to allow millions of young people to have their first say on the kind of future we want for ourselves. Whether we want to live in a country that is outward-facing, internationalist, tolerant and democratic, or one that blindly plunges itself into crisis. We need and we deserve a people's vote. It's the only way out of this crisis. And speaking of crisis and uncertainty, my party, the Labour Party, has been on a hell of a journey. Many of us spent months campaigning and lobbying to ensure that Labour is where it should be, defending the rights of migrants, championing democracy, and arguing for the UK to be part of an interconnected and tolerant internationalist world. After now, months of debates, we are united, party to party, people to people. United in stopping a Dominic Cummings-led coup. United against a disastrous no-deal Brexit. And united in support of a people's vote to end this chaos once and for all. Time may be short, but our list of friends grows longer. The stakes have never been higher, but neither has my optimism. Because whilst the road has been long, there is light at the end of that tunnel. Together we will win a people's vote. And speaking of friends, it is my honour to introduce to you a long-time one of the People's Vote campaign. I am proud to share a party with our next speaker. And I'm even prouder to share my home city with him. He is a pro-European, a leading supporter of a people's vote, our Mayor of London. Please give the warmest welcome to Sadiq Khan.
Thank you. This is a critical moment in the history of our country. This goes beyond party politics. It even goes beyond Remain or Leave. This is about defending our democracy. This is about our children's future. This is about ensuring we don't commit the biggest act of economic self-harm ever. Now, Brexit is a disaster, but a no-deal Brexit would be catastrophic. No one voted to leave the EU without a deal. No one voted for Boris Johnson to be our Prime Minister. No one voted for someone to disrespect the office of Prime Minister and display such disregard for our democratic values. And by the way, isn't it ironic that the very same people who say a people's vote is undemocratic think shutting down Parliament for 5 weeks is democratic? And let me tell you this, I can't think of anything more democratic than giving the British public a final say. Do you accept the deal the Prime Minister wants to impose upon us, or do you want the option of remaining in the European Union? And let me just end with a message to our Parliament. Put aside your party differences and work together.
Yes! Coalition!
Work together to defend our children's future and the future of generations to come. Work together to stop a catastrophic no-deal Brexit. Thank you very much.
Sadiq Khan! Mr. Mayor! let's keep it moving. Our next speaker is the Labour MP for Redcar. Please welcome the wonderful Anna Turney.
Hello, woman. Hello, you look amazing. Thank you so much for everything you are doing. You are here. You are fighting. You've been fighting for months and years. Your determination, your resilience, your fortitude, your passion, you have got us where we are now. We are still in the European Union. We are fighting tooth and nail with every fibre of our bodies to make sure that we will not crash out without a deal, and we will not let Boris Johnson ride roughshod over our democracy. No. And look at this Prime Minister we've got. Who elected him? Not 10% of the population, not 1% of the population, 0.14% of the population. He has no mandate. He is not doing this in our name. And here is a man who couldn't lie straight in bed. And let's not even go there. Here's a man who tells porcupines about kippers, about building buses out of boxes and crates. He's not a man to be relied on, and he's certainly not a man to be our Prime Minister. So we are fighting tooth and nail to stop his undemocratic coup. And let's look as well at the cabinet he's got around him. There's a Chancellor who closed our steelworks in Redcar, cost us 3,000 jobs in the end of steelmaking in Teesside. There's a Home Secretary who said she wanted to bring back the death penalty. There's a Brexit Secretary. Who suddenly found out in the last week that to make a car in the northeast of England, parts have to come to and fro across the channel. This is what we're dealing with. These people are disgraced and they cannot run our country. And no one voted to be where we are now. I represent a constituency that was 67% to leave. I listened hard to people, to everything they said during that campaign and ever since. But no one voted for this. I understand completely why my friends, my neighbours, my colleagues, and all of you will as well, why so many people voted to leave. They were fed up of nearly a decade of austerity. We were fed up in Redcar of one of the highest child poverty rates in the country. We were fed up with the closure of our steelworks. We were fed up with a youth unemployment rate that is 2.5 times the national average. These were the issues that made people feel angry, feel left behind, and want to have their say. But they didn't vote to end manufacturing in this country in a way that would make Margaret Thatcher blush. They did not vote to make sure that we couldn't get cancer treatments and medical treatments into this country. They did not vote to devastate our food and our agriculture. No one voted for this. The votes of the British people have been stolen. They have been misappropriated by a bunch of right-wing Tory ideologues who want to drive their agenda into this country. And I won't let them. I won't let them steal the votes of my constituents to further their own agenda and their own power-crazed politics. So we are fighting tooth and nail just over there. We've just won a brilliant vote, working on a cross-party basis put forward by Hilary Benn. And I want to thank all of my colleagues from all the different parties. Politics is being put aside. We are working together for the good of this country, and it's an absolute pleasure to see. I want to pay particular credit to those MPs who stood down, who've ended their careers to put the country first. We know what it means. We know what it means to this country, and we'll be fighting together tooth and nail to make sure, firstly, that we don't crash out, and secondly, that we end Boris's mad power grab. And then, for me, ultimately, the final prize, that we go back for our people's vote. The votes of 2016 have been stolen. We're on our third Prime Minister since then. No one voted for this. The public must have their say. This started with the people. It must end with the people. The people must take back control. Keep fighting. We're doing everything we can. We're with you. Thank you for all your support. Have a great afternoon.
It looks terrible. Mr. Johnson, this is not the job you're looking for. Are you ready to meet one of the leaders of the Rebel Alliance? Yes! Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage leader of the Liberal Democrats, Jo Swinson!
And don't you look fabulous? Thank you for being here to defend our democracy. Boris Johnson thinks that by shutting down Parliament, he can shut us up. Well, he can't. We will not be silenced. We will not be silenced because the people's voice must be heard. People like my constituent Kristen, who is worried because her mother, who has lived and worked here for 45 years as a European citizen, is struggling to get her settled status. Just think of the anxiety and the worry that that family is facing, and so many other families of the 3 million too. Or Gillian in Newtown in Wales. Gillian, who takes 3 different medications to deal with her epilepsy, where even small changes to the way she has taken her medication have in the past ended up with her being admitted to hospital. And her doctor is worried about the impact a no-deal Brexit will have on Gillian's health. Or Derry, the wonderful young woman who co-founded OFUC Northern Ireland, who is worried about a hard border. Derry, whose older sister used to go to school and have her school bag searched at a checkpoint. People in Northern Ireland are worried. They aren't making it up. They fear what happens next. And Derry and Gillian and Kristen and the 3 million and all of the people in Britain who are worried will not be silent, because we will not let it happen. And so we need to stop a no-deal Brexit, and then we need to stop Brexit altogether. Because there is no Brexit that is good for people's jobs, that is good for the environment, that is good for the future for next generations in this country. Whether it's a Tory Brexit or a Labour Brexit, it's all a bad Brexit. We need to stop Brexit. I am proud to work with people right across the political spectrum for that cause to stop Brexit. And here on this stage, Labour politicians, Conservative politicians, people who've been kicked out of the Conservative Party because they have stood up for the right thing, nationalist politicians, Green politicians, people who are just interested in our country and are not in any political party at all. And I feel particularly proud to see the Liberal Democrat flags as the leader of the Liberal Democrats. And I'm proud that our party has stood up right after the referendum result and said we need a people's vote. And we have campaigned and we will continue to campaign with everyone who agrees with us, because together we are stronger. Together we can do this. We can stop a no deal, we can stop Brexit, we can build a better future for our country. So join me to do that. Let's do this. Let's do it together. Thank you.
Jo Swinson! She's probably going to pick up another 3 MPs in the green room. Ladies and gentlemen, let's keep things moving. Let's welcome to the stage the leader of the Scottish National Party in the House of Commons, Mr. Ian Blackford.
Good evening, London. Give yourselves a round of applause for being here tonight. Let's send
the message to Boris Johnson. We're not leaving the European Union, not on the 31st of October, not ever. You know, yesterday in Parliament, we were commemorating 80 years since the Second World War, the two world wars that led to the creation of the European Union. A European Union that has been a project for peace. That's the strength of Europe. That's what Europe has meant for us. You know, the fact that today we have rights to live and work and get an education in 28 EU member states. I've been lucky enough to live and work in the Netherlands. My son has had the same opportunity. How dare this government take away that right from my grandchildren? And you know, we are going to continue to work on a cross-party basis and demand that we have that people's vote. But one thing's for sure, this should be about the young people. It is their future. And in any future referendum, in any future election, 16 and 17-year-olds should have the vote. You know, we face a constitutional crisis. What has happened over the course of the last few days should have people on the streets.
Yeah.
Because Boris Johnson has sent 3 members of the Privy Council to see the Queen. I call them the Three Stooges. And on the basis of Boris Johnson sending Jacob Rees-Mogg and 2 others to see the Queen, Parliament's to be shut down. Parliament's to be shut down for 5 weeks, and your elected representatives were supposed to be shut out from stopping no-deal Brexit. Well, I'll tell you what, Boris, it hasn't worked. I want to applaud parliamentarians right across Parliament, from the opposition and those that have lost the Tory whip that are with us as well. Because over the last few weeks, we've worked together because we have a shared interest in making sure that we didn't have the calamity, the catastrophe of a no-deal Brexit. So I applaud each and every one of those parliamentarians that made sure that last night we took control of the order paper. Boris, we've taken back control. And tonight, we're going to legislate to make sure that we remove that cliff edge. And over the next 2 days, the bill that we pass tonight in Parliament will go to the House of Lords. It will become a matter of law. We're not leaving the European Union on a no-deal basis at the end of October. And I say this to Boris Johnson and the mad Brexiteers that have taken over the government: respect the will of law. Respect that decision of Parliament, and you're going to have to go to the European Council meeting and demand that we get that extension. You know, let's be clear as to what we're up against, because Boris Johnson and his cronies will use every trick in the book. And they're trying to do that tonight because they're trying to dupe us into voting for a motion that will lead to a general election. Friends, tonight that is a trap. Because what they're trying to do is to make sure that parliamentarians are taken away from this place, that they can still take us out of Europe through the back door. Well, Boris, that's not going to work either. So tonight, the opposition parties will be united. We are not supporting that motion. Because the priority today is to get the legislation through Parliament. And then, friends, we bring a motion of no confidence. We bring Boris and his government down. And we make sure that you get a general election. And we've got the opportunity to say, no more, we're staying in Europe, and we'll see the back of Boris and his cronies. Now, I'm going to finish and let other people speak, but there's one last message that I want to give you. I have given our commitment, the commitment from my friend and colleague, the First Minister in Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, that we'll work together. But please also respect our position. Scotland voted to stay, 62%. Under no circumstances can we allow Scotland to be removed from the European Union. And I ask that people in Westminster and London respect our democracy, because we had an election to the Scottish Parliament in 2016 with a manifesto commitment that in a change of circumstances we had a right to our referendum. Scotland must and will become an independent European nation. But I want to do that with the goodwill of the people in the rest of the United Kingdom. Let's win this fight tonight. Let's make sure that we stop no deal. Let's ensure that we remain European citizens. Thank you.
Hello everybody. Are you good? We're going to win this fight, and we're going to win it with your support. Keep protesting, keep marching, keep campaigning. Never give up this fight, because we're fighting for what is best in Britain. Yes. And if you look at the people on the other side, Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, Boris Johnson, Jacob Rees-Mogg, and the rest of them, we know we're fighting for a Britain of equality and decency and equal opportunities and democracy and an end to racism and an end to discrimination of any kind. And the Brexiteers are all on the wrong side of the argument. And that's why the Tommy Robinsons and all the racists and all the fascists are all lining up behind the Brexit campaign. I just come from the House of Lords, and I'm going straight back, where 86 amendments are being put down by Brexiteer Tory lords to try and thwart the bill that the House of Commons is passing today. We're going back to vote. We will vote all night. We'll vote all tomorrow. We'll vote into the weekend to beat them. You keep fighting too. We'll keep fighting too. This disaster started with a referendum. It can only end with a people's vote to overturn that and get a proper Britain marching for decent values again. Good luck and keep fighting. Lord Peter Hay! Okay, let's keep things moving. Please welcome to the stage one of the stalwarts of our moment, Emily Thornberry.
Coming today, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for making sure that your voice is heard, not just in this square, not just in this country, but in that building. In that building. Because it may be that Boris Johnson and it may be that Michael Gove is not listening to you, but the majority of MPs are. And the majority of MPs, and an increasing majority of MPs, are defeating the government. We defeated them last night, and we have just defeated them again. And what is it that we're defeating them for? We are to make sure that we do not bounce out of Europe without a deal. We say no. We say no. We will not allow ourselves to be bounced out of Europe in this way. We will not let our country be damaged in this way. We must fight for our country, we must fight for jobs, and we must fight for the economy. Because I'll tell you this, if they're allowed to get away with what they want, they will close down democracy in this country, and we say no. We say no. You must listen to us. You must listen to us. We will not allow you to do this. And I thank you for your support, and I thank you for the victories that we have now, and we will continue to have. Because in the end, we need another decision made. Because we cannot leave the European Union without having the final decision go back to the people. Whatever deal is decided by whichever party, we must make sure that it goes back to the people, because it's been 3 years since the last vote. Did people vote for this? Did they vote for a lack of medicines? Did they lack for adequate food? I mean, what is that? Adequate food. During the war, people may have survived on adequate food, on rations, but it wasn't our decision. We had that imposed on us by war. These Tories want to impose on us as a matter of choice. Well, it's their choice, but they're not making that choice for us. We say no. We say no. We will not allow there to be queues around the block for basics. We will not put our economy through this. We will not let people lose their jobs. We fight back. We fight back. And I tell you what, it's all very well for Boris Johnson to say, oh, well, we can leave the European Union and we can have no deal. It'll be fine. There are lots of countries that want to deal with us. I mean, look at America. Look at America. And we say, no! We don't want your chlorinated chicken. We don't want your hormone-laden beef. And I'll tell you what, President Trump, you can keep your nasty, clammy little hands off our National Health Service and all. And when the time comes, I know this is a cross-party crowd, and I know that we all work together, but speaking on behalf of the Labour Party, we will not allow any decision to go through without coming back to you. And I can tell you, I, for one, will be out there campaigning to remain in the European Union. Because that is what is best for Britain and best for jobs and best for our economy. Onwards!
Emily Pomeroy! Folks!
You are looking very beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for holding the faith. Thank you for being really clear that you will not let Boris Johnson get away with this power grab. Thank you for saying that this is a coup, this is a complete seizure of power, and that we will not stand for it. And if they try to close Parliament, we will set up another Parliament. If they try to close down the House of Commons, then we will close down the streets. Thank you for all you've done so far in doing that. I think we are setting the agenda for this country now. And my friends, Boris Johnson is running scared. You should have seen him in the chamber last night as he saw his majority evaporate. He didn't have any morals to lose, sadly, but now he is in a desperate strait. We are on the up, and my friends, I believe we are closer than ever to being able to get rid of this government, but also, crucially, to being able to win a people's vote. Because it is so clear that Boris Johnson has no mandate for this catastrophic no-deal Brexit he is pursuing. It was never on the ballot paper. It is vital for us to say that we are the true Democrats. We are the ones who are on the side of the people, and we are the ones who will set up a People's Parliament. But let me just say something about the reality of a no-deal Brexit, because you will know, as I do, what the analysis of Operation Yellowhammer said. That the reality of a no-deal Brexit is food shortages, it is fuel shortages, it is the loss of jobs. But crucially, my friends, too, it is also the likelihood, indeed the certainty, of a hard border in Ireland. I cannot believe that we are having, frankly, the criminal carelessness to think that we would tear up the Good Friday Agreement and put back in place a hard border in Ireland. What are they thinking of? And I want to say a few words as well to the EU nationals who are among us today and who are our friends and our families and our loved ones right across all of the nations of the UK. All I can do is to apologise to you for the way this government has treated you, to say that we will always stand up for your rights, and to say for the Green Party, that beautiful gift, the freedom of movement, is one that we will always stand up for and we will always protect. But let's be clear what we're up against. We've got a Prime Minister who would happily soften up this country through a no-deal Brexit, ready for it to be asset stripped by Trump's America. And if you saw those images of the louche Jacob Rees-Mogg yesterday lounging on the green benches, you will also know that we are up against the most extraordinary sense of entitlement and someone with such contempt for Parliament and certainly by extension for the people. So we have got the fight of our lives on, my friends, but we are winning. And I want to say just one last thing, actually two. First, that the whole way in which this coup has been engineered demonstrates how weak our constitutional settlement is. And I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but essentially it means we have to have a written constitution to protect against this kind of executive power grab. So let us have a citizens' convention, a democratic citizens' convention, to put the people at the heart of our democracy for the first time ever. Let us have a change in the voting system. Let's have proportional representation, so that people's views might just be represented in that place across the road. And finally, because there are many more speakers, the final thing I simply wanted to say is this.
We love you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. The pressure you raise is huge. When you were shouting stop the coup, when Boris was trying to make his pathetic statement, you completely put him off his stride. So thank you. Keep it up, and together we will be successful.
How we doing, Rebel Scum? Excellent. Let's go one giant leap forward for democracy.
Thank you. No, thank you to you. I mean, what I did yesterday was brilliant. But people like me have been sustained over the many days, particularly over the last 12 months, by you. And by the fact that you've been prepared to turn up this evening on the march I addressed a few months ago. Each of you have got involved and taken responsibility for the situation our great country finds itself in. Each of you should be congratulated for caring about the future of our country. Yesterday, on a personal level, rather like Dominic, I've been a member of a party for 27 years. Through thick and thin, it was difficult. But I think it was the right thing to do. Today I took up a slightly different perch at Prime Minister's questions, different view, and I looked across at my former party as our Prime Minister put on a performance the like of which I don't think I'd have ever seen. It was disgraceful.
Yeah.
Bluster, not answering the question, and seemingly not caring about the power his words can have to offend, to create division in our society. A good friend of mine is the MP for Slough. It's where I practice medicine. And if you haven't seen it, watch it later. His question to the Prime Minister was the most powerful moment I've seen at PMQs in many years. He spoke about how our Prime Minister's use of language was creating division. It was creating hatred between people in his town, a town I know well, a town that is full of people from lots of different backgrounds, different faiths. It's a town that I like practicing medicine in, and it does not please me one little bit that our Prime Minister wants to try to break down the fabric of that town just for political expedient reasons. It's wrong, and it's one of the reasons, amongst many, I walked in the direction I did yesterday afternoon. Now, the main reason you're here, and the main reason I'm now a proud Liberal Democrat, is because we want to stop Brexit. And we certainly want to stop the Brexit that the people are going to get, a Brexit that they were not told about in 2016. Good friends of mine, members of my family, voted Leave in 2016 because they believed that it was going to be a walk in the park, cake and eat it. It wasn't going to affect their lives in any way, in any adverse way. They were lied to. It's wrong that this proceeds. And today this legislation, which I'm going to have to run and vote for in a few minutes, is about trying to stop no-deal Brexit. It's about trying to give us an opportunity to find a way to secure a people's vote. And if we get there, and I'm going to be out there campaigning with all of you here so that we can remain a member of the European Union, if we get there, we have to behave reasonably, with moderation. We need to be generous towards people who voted Leave in 2016, acknowledge maybe some of their concerns, discuss it with them, and take them with us. Because this movement, as far as I was always concerned, was about trying to find a way of bringing our country back together again. We can only do that if we behave moderately, reasonably, sensibly, politely. We don't show disdain for experts like Jacob Rees-Mogg yesterday in that dreadful telephone conversation with the consultant neurologist. We maintain our values, our standards of behaviour throughout, because if we do, we have the arguments, we have the case, above all we have the evidence, we have the experts on our side. We, all of us, we are on the right side of history. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's keep things moving, because as has been pointed out, our parliamentary friends have stuff to do. Please welcome to the stage one of the most passionate, one of the most consistent, one of the most authoritative voices in our movement, one of the generals of the Rebel Alliance, David Lammy!
Absolutely wonderful. And look, I was one of those characters that was here from the very beginning. When the crowds were a little thinner. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for marching, campaigning, for tweeting, for getting us to this point. You will remember that they said that we would exit the European Union on March the 31st. And we did not. We said no Brexit. then said that we would exit on April the 12th, and we said no Brexit. They're now saying we're going to exit on October the 31st. And what are we saying? No Brexit! You tell them. In the mother of all parliaments, you know, the proudest day of my life, almost 20 years ago, when I was young and thin and looked like Denzel Washington, was taking my seat in that parliament. A parliament that in 1918 gave women the vote. A parliament that decided 80 years previous to that to free my ancestors and abolish slavery. A parliament that voted in 1998 on the Good Friday Agreement. A parliament that we come together determined that we will not shut down. We will not shut down. It's a scandal and an outrage what is happening in this country. I've had some of those extreme Brexiteers say to me, why do you hate England so much? I love my country, but I hate the English nationalism. Narrow, small-minded, mean. And it is emanating now from a small cabal of people who use the most deceptive dark arts in that referendum campaign that are now situated just up the road in number 10. That is the fight that we are up against, and we will win. I am proud to stand with those Conservatives that defied the whip last night. Thank you. I am proud to be in alliance with Liberal Democrats, Greens, Scot Nationalists and Plaid and other parties to defy this nonsense. Of course, we come together. And look, of course, every member of Parliament, on behalf of their political party, wants a general election. Of course, we want a general election. But, you know, I say this to my party leader particularly. No general election before October the 31st. No. And because Boris Johnson has done a fancy deal with Nigel Farage and promised that we will exit on October the 1st, in November I would sit back with popcorn and watch the fight between those two. I wouldn't call a general election. And if we are to go back to the people, I would say, let us go back with a people's vote. That's what we want. Let us decide this issue, where I believe that the British people can see what's going on. They can see the takeover. And the vast majority of them did not vote for a no-deal Brexit. and let us be concerned about why they want this no-deal Brexit.
Tax avoidance.
Tax avoidance, deregulation, a trade deal on the worst terms with Donald Trump. You cannot make this great country the 51st state of America. That's what they're up to. And my friends, that's why Jacob Rees-Mogg was horizontal on that front bench last night. He's counting the pennies. There's this curious way in which this small elite, and my God, they're elite, have used xenophobic, anti-immigrant rhetoric to stir up parts of this country. And I know all of you will never ever stop calling that out for what it is. It is the worst of human values. The very, very worst. So this has been a long journey. It's been a long 3 and something years to get to this point. But it is because of you and so many others that we are here. We are close to that people's vote. We can get there. We can push. We can make this happen. Stand firm. This lot, they're in the last saloon. He's overplayed his hand terribly. We've got him cornered. And people now will begin to see Boris Johnson.
Boris Trump!
For the charlatan, the shallow, self-serving, opportunist chancer that he is. Thank you very much.
There you go. Folks, if you'll allow me a moment, I just got a little story I want to tell you. 2 weeks ago, the care and treatment that my little girl received would cost well into 6 figures. Total billable price to me and my family, nil. It's not often I don't feel this way, but right now, there is literally nothing I wouldn't do, legal or otherwise, to defend our NHS. And with that in mind, please welcome the Shadow Health Secretary, Mr. Jonathan Athworth.
Well, thank you very much. And haven't we just heard how wonderful our free at the point of use National Health Service is? Give everyone who works in our NHS a round of applause. And the reason I wanted to come here tonight, and I've got to be quick, you wouldn't want me to miss the vote, which is so I'm going to be quick. But I wanted to come here tonight to tell you that Boris Johnson, this character Dominic Cummings, got away with the biggest lie in the history of our NHS in saying that Brexit would deliver more money for our NHS. I'm telling you, Boris Johnson's Brexit will be a wrecking ball for our NHS, and that's why we've got to oppose Boris Johnson on the streets, in Parliament and in every community. And so I can reassure you, as somebody who, God willing, will be the nation's next health secretary, I can tell you, when we get it, because I believe we will, when we get that referendum, I'll be campaigning to remain in the European Union. We now have a situation where, because of Boris Johnson's Brexit, we've got the National Health Service buying more body bags because it believes the mortality rate is going to increase. We've got the manufacturers of flu vaccines warning that there will not be enough flu vaccines this winter, when we know that flu is coming from Australia, and is warning that people could lose their lives because of Boris Johnson's Brexit. When we import 37 million packs of medicine every month from the European Union, and we've got clinicians warning they'll be delayed at the borders, we know that people will get ill, and sadly some may even lose their lives because of Boris Johnson's Brexit. That is why we have to oppose what Boris Johnson is trying to do. And while we are at it, let us also send a message of solidarity here tonight to the 220,000 EU nationals who work in our NHS, work in our social care sector, who care for our sick and elderly every day. And when you're campaigning in your communities, and when Boris Johnson and Dominic Cummings and Nigel Farage's followers accuse you of being a traitor, accuse you of being unpatriotic, say to them this: we're the people defending the greatest British institution, our National Health Service, and nobody will call us traitors for doing it. And if these are the same people who talk about democracy, who talk about taking back control, who want to sell off our NHS, who want to privatise it and hand it to Donald Trump. Brexit and selling off our NHS go hand in hand. We have to oppose Brexit because our NHS is not for sale. Thank you. We're going to win.
Damn straight. Okay. Please welcome our next speaker, journalist, commentator, agitator. It's Paul Mason. Good evening. My name is Paul Mason and I'm a journalist and I'm a Labour Party member, and I've also been involved in this Stop the Coup coalition, an ad hoc body that hasn't organised all these sit-downs and bridge occupations and impromptu marches, but somebody has, and I'm really glad they have. Everything we have, we've had to fight for. The railings the suffragettes chained themselves to are over there. The ground you stand on is where the apprentices of London in 1641 told the king no more bishops in the Parliament. We fought for a Parliament. We fought for a right to vote. We fought for the right to assemble like this with free speech in groups of more than 3. We fought for the right to strike. We fought for the right for our children to go to school and not to work. Everything we have, we fought for, and the most precious thing we fought for was democracy. But we've got to fight it again. We've got to fight for it again because it's under attack. This is not hyperbole. This power grab, this elite power grab by a section of the rich who care nothing for the lives of you or for the people of this city, consists of 3 things. It is, of course, the suspension of Parliament, which you will get away with. And then it's the idea that maybe they won't even give royal assent to the law that may be passed this week, that's just been passed in the Commons, that may go through the Lords. We might not give it royal assent. And then, remember, at the same time, Dominic Cummings briefed the press, and if you do us with a vote of no confidence, we might ignore that as well.
Shame!
So we need to get on the streets, and I've been on them, and it's a fantastic and exhilarating experience. And by that I mean, not just standing here, but moving, and being like the Hong Kong protesters, like water. Because we have a chant on those demos. You take our democracy, we're going to take the streets. But Johnson has overplayed his hand, and I want to explain to you how I see the huge problem he now has. For many of us, if you've been to university, democracy is an ideal. If you live in a council estate half a mile away from here, democracy is a very concrete thing. It means the rule of law, because beneath the surface of our lovely society, there is organised crime, there is people trafficking, there is drug dealing, there is a lot of nasty stuff, and a lot of people live so precarious lives that all that keeps them safe at night
is the ability to rely on the rule of law.
Yes.
In the Old Kent Road, the most important shop is the solicitor's shop. If you're a migrant who lives in that area of London, the solicitors are the ultimate defenders. If you're faced with domestic violence, how much work do the police have to do dealing with basic domestic violence? The law is your only protection. And what's happened, I'll tell you, as working class people have seen these rich elite play, risk the democracy, risk the rule of law, it's dawned on them that it doesn't matter to them. But if you're some woman facing a stalker or domestic violence, and if you're a migrant being trafficked, or if you are on the receiving end of organised crime, you need it. And what does everybody know? If you've got a grandparent or a parent, it's only one generation ago that we didn't have the rule of law. You know, whether it's Peaky Blinders or Life on Mars, our parents and grandparents lived in a situation where there was police corruption, where there were corrupt judges, and where if you had a friend on the force, you could get away with anything. I'm sorry, that's the world I grew up in the 1960s. That's why we had so much paedophilia overlooked. That was the world we grew up with, and we don't want it back. So democracy for us, for the working class of this country, is a very precious thing. We're not going to give it up. So what are we going to do? What are we going to do if Johnson refuses? If Johnson refuses? From tonight, Johnson is the hostage of Jeremy Corbyn, and of Joe Swinson, and of Dominic Grieve. Johnson is the hostage of Parliament. And here's the ransom note. Here is the ransom note. Number one, enact this bill. Number two, tell us what deal you're trying to do with Europe, because it is quite obvious you don't have one. Number three, give the royal assent and do it. Get to Brussels and do it. And I'll finish on this. Right now, inside there, they're voting on the substantive. But of course there's pressure. These taunts on Jeremy Corbyn. Come on, we want an election now. What's wrong with you? No, we'll have the election in conditions where it can be democratic. In conditions where these guys in Downing Street manipulating the state in an unprecedented way, making propaganda videos on the taxpayers' money, where we know they cannot do that. We are going to have the election in the good old British way, free and fair. And when it is, I hope that all of us will mobilise using the new friendship and the new connections we form here on this square to make sure whoever wins, Johnson and his gang of criminals, corrupt and utterly reactionary people lose. Remember, this guy can cause a 300% spike in racist attacks just with a Telegraph article. What's he going to do in the election? Are we going to let him? No!
Parliament, everybody!
Johnson out! Johnson out! Johnson out! Johnson out! Johnson out!
Nice one. You know, I've been thinking about something.